Welcome to Cargo Film Presents. I'm Dan.
I'm Dave.
On Cargo Film Presents, we discuss the latest documentary films and releases, and today's selection is Matthew Heinemann's The Boy from Medellin, which chronicles the week leading up to the first solo stadium tour and homecoming in Medellin, Colombia, for one of the biggest reggaeton pop stars in the world, Grammy winner J Balvin. But as political protests break out in Colombia, his concert is in danger of being canceled, and Balvin must wrestle with his political conscience.
¿Visto de las protestas por la mañana?
Eso cada vez se vuelve peor, nene.
Riot police fire tear gas at protesters in Medellin.
Muy triste eso.
So, did this film pop for you?
A little bit, yeah. In some areas, I understand that there's this kind of burgeoning subgenre of music profile docs that kind of depict the crippling insecurities of celebrities. I've read that, docs on Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish, the new one there that's out on Apple, and Demi Lovato. I haven't seen any of these, but they're all of kind of this type, and I feel like you can certainly classify this film as one of those docs as well, right? I mean, on the one hand, I get it. I understand it's nice to portray a kind of a megastar, as people who have problems like everyone else, and they can act as role models, right, for us common folk. But but they still have mega amounts of money and brings access to an entourage of people who can help with whatever is ailing them, and puts them in a far better place than us plebes, right?
Indeed.
So I'm a little annoyed by this subgenre. I suppose it's not one that appeals to me naturally, although I understand what they're setting out to do. Besides, it's for me not the side of the celebrity that I personally want to get to know generally. Megastar talking about struggling with mental illness isn't necessarily super interesting to me. I think it's great that he shares it in every other platform that he chooses to share it with, but that thread in itself does not a good film make, in my opinion. So it feels like J Balvin kind of dives into those struggles of his mental illness in the film, with vigor, and it almost feels like that this is what he intended to do, when he decided to make this film, was to share that part of him. Did you get that impression?
I did, yeah. I mean, I guess if I could speak positively about it, what impressed me was that it sets out and tells you up front that the film, and the access was over 10 days. So I was like, how in God's name are they going to make a film or squeeze a narrative or a story out of this? And they barely managed to do it. So that, I have to say kudos to Heinemann and his crew for actually kind of getting some insight into J Balvin and his life in this very, compressed period of time that they had access to him. And I didn't know J Balvin prior to this.
Right.
My bad. Obviously, he's a big star, but I didn't know his music or who he was. And I mean, I did find him a really, really open and interesting character. Like, sometimes you get.
Yeah, he's a likable guy.
Yeah, he's a very likable guy, as he struggles with, maybe one could argue, this kind of crisis of conscience around politics, and sort of a in a surfacey kind of way that we get, but you do like him, and you do kind of like feel for him a little bit as he struggles on whether to make a statement or not about the political protests that are going on in Colombia. So I mean, that I guess would are the positive things I could say about it, as well as I thought from a kind of cinematographic and visual perspective, some of the performances and concerts were pretty impressive, and well shot, and kind of really energetic and wild and fun. But other than that, I don't think there's that much here. There's not a lot of there.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I had another opinion on the condensed amount of time that the filmmakers had. In a certain way, I almost feel like they developed that there was an intimacy there, because it seemed like they spent a lot of time over the course of a week together, and maybe having knowing that the clock was running. I don't know. There was an intimacy there. So I don't know if that's just kudos to the filmmakers to developing that with the artist, but you did feel like kind of a fly on the wall.
¿Qué sentís?
Ayer yendo para el gimnasio, parce, después me dio una sensación. Todo afuera está bien, pero es el cerebro. Solo cuando está muy concentrado en el presente, el cerebro como que se le puede engañar.
Witnessing this turbulent week in his life. And let's face it, they got lucky as filmmakers that the artist was thrown into this maelstrom of protests, as he prepares for the biggest concert of his career. The events of that kind of forced the narrative upon the artist, and that allows you, I suppose, to put you in his shoes and as to what would you do if you were in his situation. You understand his reluctance to engage, but he can't seem to shake off the shade he's getting. So he's forced to kind of into a political stance. But even then, it still feels like he's paying lip service to it a little bit. I feel. No, I mean, it's. I don't know if he's since been active on the side of political change in Colombia since that concert or not. It'd be interesting to see what he's done. But the film leaves you with the impression that he's made this choice, and that this is his new kind of way of engaging, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's the problem with these, as you touched on earlier, with these kind of, let's say, PR-driven type of documentaries, where they feel so siloed off from reality. You get this managed sense of intimacy and reality. And, I think what we love about documentaries about artists or, musicians is that, sometimes you see these cracks and these interesting fissures and contradictions between their public image that they project and sometimes what you get by following an artist for a year or 2 years, you get that really sense of authenticity, which now is trying to be manufactured in 10 days for a documentary. And you feel a little bit kind of like forced and manipulated to engage in that, and to feel sympathy for an artist or a major celebrity. And then part of you is, like you said, was that what's problematic is then real world political protest and social problems become just the backdrop for this artist's crisis of conscience, which feels very to me a little bit tone deaf to the world and the reality that we live in. Like, those things are life and death for people in places like Colombia, where social services and are breaking down, and there's political corruption, etc. And then you've got an artist who's like, should I post something or say something in my concert? And I suppose this is what some critics would argue is the epitome of a kind of performative activism, because we don't know, as you say, what happens afterwards. Did he continue to engage in this? Did things change? Did it make a difference? All of that is just, kind of airbrushed out of it. And so you're kind of like, that's really unfortunate.
Right. Yeah. What did you call it? Performative what?
Activism.
Activism. Yes. Good.
This idea that it's about, activism becomes more about, making you feel better, or, a kind of social capital that you post things or say things and, only serves to increase your follower count or whatever.
Right. But on a certain level, what I did enjoy about watching the film, as I say, being put in his position, even if it was performative, it speaks to this day and age and how celebrities are. So it's often forced to choose a side, and often you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. I recently heard an interview of now Oscar winner Daniel Kaluuya, who is British born, but is born to Ugandan parents, and he still has a lot of family in Uganda. He was asked about the Ugandan political situation. There's a considerable amount of corruption there, and he chose not to answer any question about that. Why? Because he's afraid, right? I mean, he's afraid for his extended family, which I understand is quite large down there, and he still wants to visit Uganda. He likes to visit there. He loves the culture, doesn't want to be, blacklisted in any way, shape, or form. And that's why some of these megastars, that's what they have to contend with, I suppose. Those are the calculations they need to make and take into account. And so, in that way, I think this film speaks to a little bit of that, of saying, well, yeah, it's not cut and dry as a decision. You have all his handlers coming in and telling him this is the right thing to do, and
Scooter Braun,
Scooter Braun, for instance, just you gotta stay on the side of the people and all of this stuff, right? And maybe it's as easy as that, but are there other considerations? Now the film doesn't go into any of that. They don't go into any of those concerns as it relates to J Balvin. Would the Colombian government react in a way that would be damaging to him and his family? We don't know. It would have been interesting to know, because then the stakes of that decision are enhanced, and that'd be great. However, so it was me extrapolating all of that from watching the film, but you're right, it's thin in those areas for sure.
Que si habla mal, y si no habla también, bueno, entonces pierde o pierdo, ¿no?
I don't want to get into political things because that's not my thing. I just want to focus on giving light to the world.
Yeah, and in a way, that's where I felt most sympathy for J Balvin, is that he's almost pushed. He doesn't have a choice but to engage in this kind of performative activism, because everyone's telling him this is the morally responsible thing to do, but it's only more responsible in the sense that it's good for his image and good for his brand, and he himself doesn't feel it. So you're like, right. Well, he shouldn't have to engage in this kind of in political discussion if he doesn't feel it authentically, if he doesn't want to, if he's not informed about it. But he's forced to, even though he says, I don't know enough about this. Correct. Yeah. And maybe he should, have read up on the situation or done, but he's a major, pop celebrity artist, and that's not his thing. And so that's what, it was really strange, that whole thing where he's forced into that kind of activism for the sake of his, brand and for his.
Right. Well, here's my advice to J Balvin. Yeah. Let's get off social media, dude. It's not doing you any good.
No, I know.
I mean, the filmmakers also build up to this moment in the film where Balvin meets another less prominent artist, right, who's been criticizing him on social media, and he's very affected about what this guy posts. Why? I don't know. Anyhow, the discussion that they have, there's this big meeting at the arena where he's going to be performing at the stadium, and the discussion ends up being kind of anticlimactic, right? This other artist provides these platitudes, and it feels kind of contrived, and it doesn't seem to go anywhere, but it's clear the filmmakers make it clear that he's consumed by what people say about him, and I suppose that's part of the problem with Balvin and him dealing with celebrity is this how his perception to the public appears. He seems to be very obsessed. If anything, that's probably the biggest takeaway in terms of his personality. The guy is really obsessed with how he comes off to the public, almost, to unhealthy proportions.
Yeah. It does. I guess that makes it maybe most relatable for some people, is our obsession with social media, our kind of addiction to it. And It's where we get all our information about. I mean, it's how not only us, but J Balvin understands the situation in Colombia is through, how people are talking about it on social media in, what appears to be a kind of distorted like way, a kind of tabloid way, people were attacking him, calling him the lukewarm boy from Medellin, and all the stuff. And so, yeah, as you say, it's just all about image and perception rather than anything that's actually going on. You wanted to say like, yeah, like you guys should, read some newspapers, or I don't know, read some magazines or something.
If that's what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like if if you're being asked to make this decision about it, yeah, like it'd be great to actually know what's going on.
Right.
But
yeah,
that's the world we live in.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, this is not a film where you get an appreciation for what J Balvin is as an artist, right? You don't get a sense of what is that secret sauce that made him such a big star. In that way, the film kind of speaks only to J Balvin fans, because those are the ones that are going to want to see this other side of him, a look at the man, not necessarily the music. I'm glad I watched it though. He's like you said off the top, he's a likable guy. Still seems he's got, some stuff to deal with regards to his image and how he makes these decisions and how he manages the attention that he gets. It's my hope that he just kind of focuses on making music. That's where he seems most comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, unfortunately, you don't get a sense of his music, although, I liked him, and he seems like an incredibly tireless performer. That the concert that he gives, it seems to go on forever. He just keeps going.
It's like going on, 4 or 5 hours. Yeah.
So much energy. And the fact that he seems to, despite the narrative being about this, political decision to post on Instagram or say something at the concert about this situation, he seems to really actually care about his fans and the people of, Medellin, where he's from. He talks about the fact that it haunts him, and I don't know, I mean, it's true or not, but it haunts him if he doesn't take a picture with someone or sign an autograph. He'll remember their face, for a long time afterwards. And so you get a sense that he really does love the place where he comes from, and yet it somehow gets warped and distorted through social media and that whole machinery. So
I would recommend some distance. It sounds like he does need that. He's just too obsessed with that attention. That's the focus I think he needs, is a healthier relationship with that. Because if this film is any indication, and I don't know if it is, but that seems to be what he needs to deal with and manage. But anyway, as I say, glad I watched it. Glad I was introduced to a cool guy who makes great music, and I got a little taste of Medellin culture.
Well, so there you have it. The takeaway is J Balvin. Take a time out on social media, but otherwise, if you're looking for a music doc, hey, this one's on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon. Yes, it is.
So you can check it out on Amazon.
Cool.
And we'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.